Hey guys, Blake here. Today I'm going to be reviewing my experience with Linux phones. This is to say mainline Linux, not Android. For this, I'll be reflecting on my experience with these devices, which were all designed with Linux in mind and shipped with a distribution installed. But it's also worth noting that some people install mainline distributions on more stereotypical mobile devices like a Google Pixel, a OnePlus, that sort of thing. What we have here in front of us is a Purism Librem 5, a Pine64 PinePhone Pro, a Volla X23, and a Clockwork Pi Uconsole. Obviously, that's not a phone, but being a mobile Linux device with cellular capabilities, I figured I'd include it. I'm going to start off with going over the phones, and we'll get back into this kind of in-between device later. But I'm going to start with mentioning kind of the different markets for these devices. All of these devices have they're all marketed towards the individual who wants kind of a mobile Linux experience or a more control of their environment. They're also all, to some extent, marketed in the guise of privacy and security, but they all have their own differences in their specifics of that. First of all, this Librem 5 and this X23 are both marketed as functional devices you can use. This PinePhone Pro is not that way. They market it as a developer edition device. This partly has to do with the software environment of all these devices. Um, Although Pine64 does support development for software for their device, most of the support on this device is done by the community as a whole, and it's not very centralized. They have different distributions and all kinds of mixing amongst that. There's specific developers that release specific kernels that are great, and sometimes it's better to mix that kernel with another set of distribution and a different manager and what you may have. So kind of very mixed community-driven focus here. These two phones are a little bit higher up the support totem pole, I suppose I'll say, with the X23 here. Volla produces the device and supports, the usage obviously of Ubuntu Touch on their device, but the Ubuntu Touch software is developed and updated, all that managed through the UBports community targeting this device. So it's centralized, unlike this PinePhone Pro, more so I will say, um, and has more backing, I'd say as well. Post-market OS is something I have on this device currently. It's shipped with a version of Manjaro. There's all kinds of different details I'll get into later about this, but that those all kind of have their thing. And then this device is Ubuntu Touch. It's planned to be Ubuntu Touch. It's shipped with Ubuntu Touch. Some people have been working on different distributions for this device, but it's not. It's mainly Ubuntu Touch. This Librem 5, on the other hand, is developed by Purism, and they have an in-house team developing the operating system or distribution as well, which is based on Debian. They call it Pure OS. So they got a team working on it. They have the community as well around it. I think this is almost the best of both worlds. This is an in-between, and this is, more for hackers as far as marketing goes. In that same vein, these all are marketed slightly differently when it comes to, I suppose, what I'm going to call hackability or support for like makers, that kind of thing. Being a developer device, this PinePhone Pro definitely has the most emphasis in those aspects. The device obviously is supported by the community. It comes out of the box, it's supposed to be hacked, it's supposed to be modified. They have a pogo pin interface in the back of this, on the back of the phone underneath this cover, that is. You can get different backs, you can get wireless charging, cover, you can get a keyboard cover, all kinds of fun stuff. It's kind of marketed marketed towards people who like Raspberry Pis, SBCs, but they want like a screen and a modem attached or a phone form factor, that sort of thing. That's kind of how this is marketed. The Librem 5 is also marketed in a similar vein to that in the sense that they want you to be able to hack it. The modem, I like on this device, the modem is attached via M.2. You can just slide it out, put a new modem in, you can do all kinds of cool stuff there. It's modular. This one has a modem that's soldered directly to the board, but I'll go into this later. This is more hardware stuff, but this device is marketed towards a hackable community as well. They release some schematics and some source for the actual hardware in this device, just like the PinePhone Pro. Both these come with bootloaders that are already unlocked. You can reflash everything on the device, mostly, right? I mean, I guess theoretically you could reflash everything on the device, but yeah, I mean, I suppose they're not expecting you to reflash the firmware for like the modem or something of that sort. Although you can, and there is a reverse engineered modem software for this device. The Volla X23 is not in the same vein necessarily as these two devices. It's much more similar to your stereotypical mobile device. It ships with the bootloader locked. I think it's a closed source bootloader, and they're not expecting you to swap the bootloader out or any of that stuff. They do support dual booting operating systems, but they're expecting either their Volla Android distribution or the Ubuntu Touch distribution they have on this device now, or I have on this device now. So there's, people do install different distributions on this device, but it's, like I was saying, much closer to a standard stereotypical mobile device like a Pixel or something in those regards. Another thing I'm going to dig into a little bit deeper here is the privacy and security aspect of the marketing for all these devices. This device is supposed to be marketed kind of as a rugged, go everywhere, also let's be secure and have a little bit more control of your software device, but these two are deeper in that vein of privacy and security. These both offer hardware control switches for your modems, for your Wi-Fi, for your cameras, which gives you a physical layer of security. And then, like I was saying, these have more firmware that's open source than this device, which allows for a more auditable solution overall, which can provide security through that process, as you may know. This is a device that's harder and less auditable. So, on top of all of that, specifically this Librem 5, the company is really serious. They really emphasize security and privacy. I think they may even have some government contracts. They definitely market towards the government. They provide a all made in the USA model for a supply chain security perspective inside the USA, that is, I suppose, unless your country trusts the USA. I don't know, that's, complicated politics, but they offer that. Their new Liberty phone device is even more so in that vein. They really care about privacy and security here. The PinePhone Pro is kind of in that vein, but as it's supported by the community and that kind of thing, they don't dive into it as in depth. Also, I think the company has a different model. They released this device and they're like, look at how cool this is. Do as you wish. This company is marketing towards people that have less experience and perhaps, I suppose, but more average consumer versus developer here. So these people have more marketing in general is kind of what I'm trying to say too. So even though these are both pretty similar in their security aspects, I would say these market it heavier. So that's kind of an overview. Like just to, finish all those points. The market is different for all these in some way. Like I was saying, this is kind of more developers, tinkerers vibes. This is going to be your average Joe Schmo that wants to try Ubuntu on their phone. And this is going to be you really care about security and control, and you want Another thing I suppose I didn't mention is long-term support. Since the company backs their operating system and they have an in-house team, they also market this device with a long-term support like feature and the stability and security and all that. Again, with these two devices being functional too, these companies both have to market to some extent the, I suppose, sustainability, not in a environmental sense, but in the survivability of their phone sense. So these people have to be like, we're going to push updates, and these people have to be like, UV ports will push updates, your phone's going to last and be secure, yada yada. So, as far as my personal experience with all of these devices and Linux phones in general, TLDR, I've had a great experience. I daily drove this Librem 5 for over a year and plan to do it again. But I'm going to go into more specifics, and I'm going to go in order of how much I used the device. So we're going to start with this Librem 5. This Librem 5 was a great experience. I daily drove it, like I said, for over a year as a mobile heavy-duty diesel mechanic in kind of the middle of nowhere. That's reflected all over this device. I'm sure you can see on camera. I hope you can see on camera all the scratches on the metal, dents in the metal, dents in the plastic, broken bits of plastic, the screen protector screwed. This thing got heavy use. I mean, maybe one of the more extreme environments you would put a mobile device through. And it was my sole daily driver device, my sole mobile cellular device. I ran business through this. I ran my social life through this. I did it all through this. And it performed great. The reasons I stopped daily driving this device were sort of twofold. It was kind of a crash out experience, right? I was daily driving this device and it worked great, but one aspect was the people I had to communicate with, I couldn't, they wouldn't communicate with me, essentially. I couldn't convince them to use what I deemed relatively normal communication on this device, right? So, I mean, I couldn't even get them to text me. I couldn't even get them to use SMS. They would just not talk or communicate with me. Not that they wouldn't, but not very well, right? It was blatantly obstructive for them to use SMS, which blows my mind. But um, yeah, so that was part of it. Mind you, I did get Waydroid on this device. I had installed Snapchat, WhatsApp, all the standard stuff that my peers were using, and they were functioning. They weren't the smoothest. I mean, you got to think this thing only has, it's not a powerful device. It has like 3 gigs of RAM. I was using a little bit of swap space to get this to boot Pure OS, a Waydroid container with all the Google utilities to support Snapchat. Then on top of that, Google Play services running in the background, yada yada, just to support like Snapchat and WhatsApp and all that stuff. I was a lot going on for this device. It was not the smoothest experience, but it did work. Um, so yeah, that's kind of some of it. The other reason that I stopped daily driving this device was the call quality isn't great. For business and the average person, it was fine. The people could understand me. That was great, and it worked. And I probably will start daily driving this again, but I'd be comfortable with that. The problem was communicating with my grandmother, who has hearing aids, and the entire setup together, she could not understand me on this device. So those two came together one day, and I was like, I guess I'll have to be normal. But yeah, it's worth mentioning too, at the same time, when I started daily driving this device for a while, I was kind of in parallel to swapping between this and the PinePhone Pro, that is. Kind of is just a testing experience, kind of comparing between them. I'll get into this device more in a minute here, but let's turn this Librem 5 on. Overall, when I got this device, it was functional. It was great. I know when people first were receiving these devices, and I don't remember, but possibly even when I got it, something that wasn't functioning was the camera and suspend. What I need to say about that is all of these devices, except for perhaps this X23, I don't remember. I'm going to say that though. Perhaps this X23 is fine, but all these other devices and any mobile Linux experience more or less has issues with power, right? But partway through me daily driving this device, for a long time, the distribution I was running actually had working suspend. So without suspend, I was using this device day in, day out, and it was okay for my experience. I mean, you got to think, I was in the middle of nowhere. I had terrible cell reception. I had near no power. I mean, I'd charge my truck when I could. Uh, and it worked fine. It was replacing a OnePlus device that had better battery life, but this was okay to me. It still lasted all day. I could get home and still have a little bit of charge left. It was okay. Uh, but then I updated it at some point, and suspend was working out of the box. I mean, not well, I guess I updated it, so not out of the box, but it was working, and it was working great, flawlessly. For that while, a long while, months, I would say, this device was amazing. I mean, the battery was great. It lasted way longer. Not to mention they're continually providing updates to the software to use less power and optimize better. So not without suspend, the device is getting better with power usage, but combined it was great. I will say though, if I remember correctly, mind you, I haven't used any of these devices in a long time. Who knows what's happened now, but if I do remember, there was an update after that while where suspend kind of stopped working for me. I don't know why, I don't know what bug was introduced or how that worked, but yeah, I don't know what state it's in now. I don't know if that was a temporary thing that they kind of hacked, but when it was working, it was great, and it worked great for me. Other than that, oh yeah, back to the camera. The camera quickly started, or not started, but was fixed and works. It's not the best camera, it's nothing to write home about, but it does picture and video and has automatic adjustments or manual if you'd like. Both cameras work. So yeah, not, not a great camera, but for sending clients parts diagrams and whatnot, it worked great. I mean, they used the crap out of it. Other things like GPS also worked great. I don't remember the exact stability of GPS, but I'm also not sure if that was a byproduct of the device or the fact that I was doing a bunch of hacky GPS stuff. And I mean, I had multiple different libraries on this device trying all kinds of weird stuff for a project I was doing. So I'm not entirely sure if that was a problem between different hosting applications or what. But it did work. I mean, there's definitely times where I used this to navigate somewhere, and it worked. It guided me, and it worked great. The maps aren't as fully detailed, I suppose, obviously, as like Google Maps. I think it uses OpenStreetMaps, and you know, there's not like one of the richest companies in the entire world supporting documenting everything in existence for that. It's just a bunch of you and I's kind of going on there and being like, oh yeah, well that's where I shop, so I'm gonna put that on the map today, which is great. It's community driven, but if you're gonna get this, just know that. Alarms worked, all the standard stuff worked, calculator, games and stuff. I had a few like actual kind of games on this device just to test, and they worked great. They were smooth. I mean, I'm sure you're not gonna run a AAA title on this device or replace your desktop with it, obviously, but yeah, it worked great. Stuff a lot more advanced than 2048 or chess, which just comes on the device, worked. The Pure OS store is just I mean, it's like a flat pack area, and it works great. It has some stuff on there. Uh, you got your terminal, obviously. It's a mobile Linux device, and just as you'd expect. I mean, it's mainline Linux on a mobile device. It works as such. It works great. It's like having, I think, GNOME now. What is it? What is Fosh based on? I want to say it's GNOME. You guys will know, but it's like having that on this device. It's just Fosh is a little bit more friendly to mobile, but desktop apps work on this. Overall, great. But with that, let's go back to this PinePhone Pro. Oh, audio too in general on the device is fine. The stuff you'd expect to be okay is okay and good. Mobile data, amazing. That works great on all of these devices, by the way. Mobile data always worked and will work and does work. Okay, this PinePhone Pro, where I started with this exploration and such. This is a developer edition device. I got it as such. It was marketed as such. I don't remember if I mentioned, but this was a kind of earlier version of the second iteration of these devices. And some of my gripes with this device, I'm not entirely sure are not partially a byproduct of that. I kind of doubt it, but I've thought about it, and I'll explain why in a second here. Actually, you might even get to see it. I'm going to turn this device on. When I got this device, it shipped with a stable build of Manjaro on it that was moderately functional. It would somewhat reliably do text, calls, standard cellular stuff. Like I said a second ago, it obviously did data great. The device ran great. It wasn't like crashy or anything. Yeah, we're gonna just let that do its thing. We might get to see what I'm talking about here. But yeah, overall relatively reliable, except for not enough. You know, you could get a build in its infancy when I was first, experimenting with this device before I had the purism. You could get a build working for days, but not not enough, not good enough to daily drive, especially in my shoes. Really quick here, I do want to mention this has a quite a bit better specs than this device. Not as good as this device, but better specs. It's a faster processor, a little bit better cameras, more RAM, that kind of thing, more storage if I remember right. So better device hardware wise. So yeah, but as you can see here, I tried to boot the device. We're stuck in this red mode. When I first got the device, it shipped with, I don't remember what bootloader, but a different bootloader. I've tried a few different bootloaders on this device. And it worked, I think it booted stably then. I think better then. But then everything started shifting over to toe boot. And I think that's when these kinds of weird issues started, where I couldn't reliably reboot the device. This device will turn on, it will reboot after a few times of fidgeting though, sometimes with like absence of power. If I leave this device on, it's fine clearly, but it's weird. It's intermittent. So that was a major problem because I had the operating system stack, right? That wasn't fully reliable. So if I would have one build on the internal memory, one build on an SD card, and if something went wrong, I could reboot into the other operating system and get it working, or between the two, I could have a functioning device. Kind of just, I don't know, to daily drive for the sake of testing almost. I knew it wasn't going to be like I can just use this all the time, but I wanted to kind of work on it and get it there if I could. I never got the time. I didn't contribute anything, but that was my hope. So, anyways, I'm gonna have to cycle the power on this device now. I don't have an SD card in it, so it's gonna just boot into the regular operating system, or on the memory that is. It'll flash red, and since I'm not holding down any volume buttons, it'll flash yellow, and it should boot into what I currently have on here, which is the practically most recent release of Post-Market OS, which happened to be one of my favorite distributions on this device. I tried nearly every distribution offered for this device, including Glowdroid, but I tried Post-Market OS, Mobian, Arch, man, I don't remember all of them, but they were great. The ones I liked the most were Mobian, was super, really reliable, great build, and Post-Market OS has always been great for me. I loved Post-Market OS. I also love Post-Market OS because it's built on Alpine. It's very minimal and it's very modular. The Post-Market OS has a tool called PM Bootstrap for building basically building an image for you and installing it. says I need an update, which is crazy because I installed this I think yesterday, but um, so it's booted and fine now. But anyways, where was I at? So this device, ignoring the stuff I mentioned, is fine. And to finish off the toe boot discussion, like I was saying, it doesn't always boot reliably, and if I have to reboot, that's an issue. If I'm underneath a freaking combine and something's going wrong and I have to reboot, I can't just sit there for like 10 minutes rebooting the phone. It doesn't take that long. That's an exaggeration, but you know. Other than that, when it shipped, also the camera wasn't working, suspend wasn't working, which are moderately standard things of this time period of Linux mobile. I'm excited to see where this has gone. I haven't touched this device in a long time, and a lot has happened, I'm sure. I mean, booting into this new version of Postmarket OS was just crazy, but I messed up. I didn't install a camera app. I know the camera does work now. It's better quality than the Librem 5, like I was saying earlier. Other than that, though, relatively similar. Some builds that have suspend kind of working, but I never had a build that was fully daily drivable comfortably and confidently on this device. So yeah, you got your standard terminal, and I don't remember testing GPS on this device too much, so I don't remember how that worked. But yeah, if calls didn't drop, if calls were reliable and SMS was reliable, which it may be now, I don't know. I'm gonna have to test all this out and make another video now, but if those two worked, I wouldn't even need suspend. Probably this device's battery lasts long enough for my use case, then it'd be a great daily driver. I'll have to try it again. Now, let's get into this X23 device, which I'm going to describe basically as an in-between of these and your stereotypical Android device. It's way more polished, I think actually way more powerful. I mean, this has 6 gigs of RAM if I remember correctly. It's rugged, it's clean, it's just the device is great. The operating system is great too. It runs great. I just don't like Ubuntu Touch. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I'm in the US and this phone is designed for the European market. If you order this device to be shipped to the US, they'll notify you, at least they notified me, but they'll notify you that it's not going to work on your cellular networks. I've gotten this to work on some of my local networks with certain bands with, okay service, but not reliable. I can't use this as a phone, but it's not because of the software or hardware. It's because of the fact that I'm in the U.S. I wish, I wish it was designed for the U.S. or I wish I lived in Europe. One of those two things, because this device is great. But on top of that, I just don't like Ubuntu Touch. It's not like, I mean, this has convergence, which in convergence it is kind of like Ubuntu Desktop. Not that I like Ubuntu Desktop necessarily either, but the device is quirky. It's Ubuntu, so you got AppArmor, and I remember some weird stuff with the terminal. I'm not sure if this is kind of a sandbox or we don't have root or something weird. Maybe it's the root thing. I don't know. And I've done some tinkering, so these warnings are. I'm sure it didn't ship with warnings out of the box, but I've tinkered with it, trying to get it to be just what I would expect a Linux device to be, and I wasn't a fan. It's a clean interface, but I couldn't even get desktop apps to run on this device because I couldn't get them to install the way I would like. I guess, I mean, I didn't use the Ubuntu App Store, which, what do they call this? Open Store? Okay, another Flatpak area, I'm sure. But yeah, and I'm sure all these work great, and the apps work great. As a phone, this works great. The camera, everything works. GPS, all that stuff works. I mean, you can see, even though I'm in the US market, I've made calls on it before, I've done texting. A beautiful device, great device. But yeah, Not for the US. I'd be interested to install different Linux on it too, a different distribution, just because I didn't like Ubuntu Touch, but I don't know. I also didn't delve into Ubuntu Touch as much, and I never daily drove this device, obviously, so I don't have as much experience. Man, it's a great device, though. Beautiful device. All of these two, I mean, I have a strong distaste for the stereotypical mobile device and whatever, all that stuff. You can see kind of my flavor. So part of it was, man, that would be cool to have a mobile device like this. In the case of this Librem 5, I would say it met that quality. I just didn't expect to be so hindered by my peers. Doesn't matter though. But a second motivation for all of this is just to support the companies. I, I mean, it's not like I'm just giving straight donations and such, although I have, but it's more so that I can give them some sort of profit margin. I get a device I can tinker with. If I get time, which has never happened, then I can maybe help contribute. I can do some bug testing, whatever we need. But on top of that, I'm just directly supplying some sort of profit margin to these companies, which I think are great companies and doing some cool things in the world. So that kind of summarizes the phones. I'm going to boot this up and talk about this kind of in-between device. This Uconsole, I want to also start with saying I had different motors for this device too, and they make a bunch of different versions of internal boards and stuff you can get with this device. But the one I have is the Allwinner D1 chip running RISC-V, because the kind of main motivation for this device that I thought was so cool is I was like, wow, look at this beautiful quality case and such. This chassis is just so quality. I'm not sure if this is metal or plastic supposed to be brushed, like look like a brushed aluminum. I'm pretty sure this is metal, but you can just tell this device is solid. The boards inside are manufactured great. At least they look so. I'm not going through and testing every trace, but you can if you look at this device, you can tell it's a quality device. That being said, the RISC-V version or board inside of this device, so that this complete configuration is not reliable. I mean, I don't know if I go as maybe it's moderately reliable, but it's not. You're not getting this device, the RISC-V version of this device, expecting to just kind of use it as a mobile Linux cellular device. You gotta know Linux to use this device, right? I have only seen one build released by the company, and it's a modification of Ubuntu for targeting this Allwinner D1 chip. It's never been updated to my recollection. It's still 1.3, and I think it's always been 1.3 for this device. It was also built for their dev term, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not sure if the dev term is what built up to 1.3, but I've never seen a different build than 1.3 for this device. And that if I have it on this device, I use this device. You just got to know with this Allwinner D1 chip. I mean, for one, you can see. I mean, this is just X11, right? Like, it's simple. It's slow. Did that even work? Okay, there we go. It has a backlight too. Can I turn that on? If I can figure that out. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but it has a backlight keyboard. It's a quality device. But yeah, this RISC-V environment, you got to know what you're doing. You can't just apt update and expect it to not blow everything up. It's, you know, you're updating manually. Really, you shouldn't. You should look at their kernel. You should perhaps use and update their kernel and build an LFS or maybe a Gentoo or a build root, something on this device if you want the RISC-V version. Now, the other boards like the Raspberry Pis that just fit right in the sky or their own ARM boards, all that stuff, I imagine those are stable, reliable, comfortable, work great, and I bet they're a beautiful mobile device. I've seen people use them for penetration testing. I've seen them use these for all kinds of fun stuff, and I think they're great. They're great devices. But yeah, I wanted to support silicone RISC-V in a computer environment, and this is a much more affordable device than all these devices. And I don't remember if I mentioned that, but they all vary in prices and stuff on occasion and go on sales. But yeah, this was just cool. It's piqued my interest. So in relation to these devices with the cellular side of things, this has mobile data that works great. It works great as far as cellular stuff like that. You can send and receive text. I've done that on this device. You wouldn't really do that probably. Well, I don't know. I did it. It worked. The thing that's quirky about it is calls. The modem in this device, the cellular modem, does calls, and if I understand it correctly, I've never made a call on this device, but you can initiate a call, send the right commands to the modem and everything, but all the audio goes through this jack. You put the modem in this expansion port, by the way, if I remember right. I haven't touched any of these in a long time. Yeah, you'd have to have a headset and microphone through this port to hear and record and transmit your audio through the call. The output for the sound on this device is here. So if you were in theory wanting to make a call through this interface or operating systems for whatever reason, you want to record it or any of that, or have just a nice interface or something like that, you'd have to theoretically, to my understanding, modify the hardware to pipe that into your system somehow. I don't know if maybe for fun and not very practical, you could just pipe a wire around here and then you wouldn't be able to hear it, obviously, but you could have it in the environment, maybe. And that's assuming the analog digital converters and everything can catch up, but anyways. So yeah, quirky. You would not use this as a phone, but a well-built, fun device. Um, and it does all the standard. With this build, not updating it or really, doing everything manually, it works. It's slow. L1 or D1 is not, top of the line chip for performance. They're not, building a Steam Deck with them, but it's uh, it's great. And also, as a mobile RISC-V development environment, it's slow, but it works, and it's hardware, so you can test it on physical hardware. But truth be told, if I have to build a binary for RISC-V, I'm cross-compiling it on my main system. It's going to be faster, and it's going to have more resources. I think this only has a gigabyte of RAM, which, compared to my IBM 5155, that's a lot. But for a modern device, I don't know. This has 6 gigs of RAM. So, yeah. You'll see too with this RISC-V operating system they have on here. I don't know if the camera will pick any of this up. It probably won't, because it probably won't focus. Wow, that's doing surprisingly good on the focus as far as the text I can see, but these little graphs here in charts show the system's like resource usage, which is kind of fun. Oh yeah, it says right there, Uconsole R01. That's kind of cool. So, oh yeah, it says a gigabyte RAM there. A 960 megabytes, whatever. I guess I could have just read off of that for going through that, but works. This RISC-V version also has some bizarre boot and shutdown issues on a completely stock image, mind you. So I'll just watch. If I shut down this device right now or attempt to, let's do am I root? No, I'm not root. This likely, sometimes it does fine. This likely will never shut off though. This will likely sit in this state forever until the batteries die. So know what you're doing if you want the RISC-V version. But that's kind of why you got the RISC-V version anyway, right? You're just trying to, if you got the RISC-V version, you probably have some experience with all that kind of stuff. Or if you want to, if you want to just tinker with it and explore it, you could set up a virtual machine or a container. I have RISC-V containers for cross-compiling, but um, it's still fun to tinker with hardware too if you want to do that. So yeah, I guess that's my moderately complete current review on mobile Linux and cellular Linux devices. namely Linux phones. Overall, great experience. I would say, I'd say you could daily drive at least the Purism devices. Or I mean, if you're in Europe, you have this and other options. I mean, if you're in Europe, you're spoiled. If you're in, I think in Asia too, in China, you're spoiled. But if you're in the US, and I'm sure many other countries, you got to kind of be a little more picky. And long story short, for me, great device driving that Purism. I think I'm going to do it again, that Librem 5. And I'm going to have to try out that PinePhone, see where it's at. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care.